Hello, welcome to Pit Resource Connection. I'm Mary Smith, your host, and today we've got Adam May, who is our volunteer coordinator for the Real Crisis Center. And welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
So you've just moved into this position recently, and you're finding everything's going fine?
Yeah, everything's going pretty good. Trying to, basically just grab all the different pieces that I wasn't holding on to before, but working on it. It's doing good. Doing good.
So as a volunteer coordinator, you are recruiting volunteers to help answer the phone lines, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us about the kinds of tasks the volunteers are expected to do once they are trained.
Well, when a volunteer comes in, basically what we have them do is crisis counseling. So when you come into the center, you're going to have a computer and a phone, and basically when the calls come in, either on the Greenville helpline, our info line, suicide hotline, whatever it is, they'll just grab the call and then they'll do the crisis counseling.
Okay. So we don't just take them off the street and put them on the phones.
No, certainly not. No, we have a very, very comprehensive training. It's 72 hours total is the training. We have 32 hours classroom time where we basically go over the structure of a crisis call, different kinds of crises they're going to be handling. In addition to that, we'll talk about, different kind of problem areas people might find, and we'll guide you through everything. And then after that, there's a 24-hour on the phone, kind of, on the job, on the job training period, where basically they will, we'll have them paired up with a staff member, and we'll start them out on kind of easier calls, easier lines, and then sort of graduate people up to the harder calls.
So once they get used to taking the calls, it's not so scary.
Yeah, definitely.
The worst, everybody's fear is that the first call they get is suicide.
Oh yeah. What if I say the wrong thing is what everyone tells me.
You don't say the wrong thing.
No, certainly not.
And then following that is our ASSIST training, which is applied skills and...
Applied suicide intervention skills training.
Yeah,
and that's a 16-hour training. It's 2 8-hour days, and we usually, we schedule that throughout different times of the year, so it doesn't necessarily come immediately after the on-the-phone training, but we do require volunteers to have that, and that will sum up any sort of confidence issues people have typically. That'll really boost confidence on the calls.
Absolutely. And so most of the contacts made to the center are by phone. We do have walk-ins that do come in, but that's not very often.
No, definitely not.
So it's predominantly telephone counseling. And this class, it meets 5 times a year, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And the class itself, it's like I said, it's 32 hours long. It's 2 2-hour days for 3 weeks, and then there's 2 8-hour Saturday classes. So we have lots of time to basically, go over all the different aspects of a crisis call, do lots of role playing where we basically have a caller and a counselor, and then they kind of practice, and then, we'll go over what they did wrong, what they can do better, and so
how they can improve their skills.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so what is it that you're finding that the students feel is the hardest part of the class?
Definitely the role playing. People are fine to kind of sit there through the lecture portion and take notes and do the tests, but when it comes to role playing, I think that's when most of the jitters come out. But we do tons of role playing to get people accustomed to that. It's normal, I think, for people to be nervous with this sort of thing, but we make sure we kind of hammer that out in the class and get everyone to a point where they're very comfortable and confident before they take their first call.
And it's a performance thing, you don't want to screw up in front of everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, but find unless you're really rude to people, it's so very hard to screw up.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, go ahead and kill yourself. No, but that's the thing that when I was doing training, that was the thing that I found that, that they really were worried that what they would say would cause a reaction in somebody else. And
and I think that's the biggest concern that I've heard is, what if I say something wrong? And realistically, like you were saying, there's not much you can say that's wrong, and the things that would necessarily, I think, be wrong, we're going to make sure you're trained past those points before you go to the first call. Yeah.
And then there's staff on shift, at least one, if not 2 or 3 on staff on each shift that are there to help support the volunteers. So they're not flying solo and having any backup. If they need help on a call, the staff can help them muddle through it in the best way possible.
And we actually encourage, if at any point you feel even slightly overwhelmed, you think this call might be any sort of a problem, wave your arms, throw a pin, get someone's attention, and we'll come in and help you out. And, we're not going to throw anybody to the wolves, as it were.
That's good, yeah. So What are they? I know that the Crisis Center is the suicide hotline for the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Also, backup crisis center for the national suicide hotline.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that people hear when they say you're a suicide hotline, that kind of scares them, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's a big topic. I mean, suicide is it's very heavy, and again, you know, people are afraid of saying the wrong thing. People are afraid of just how to handle that. But in general, you know, there is a specific way you can handle suicidal thoughts. It's a couple considerations to take into mind. One, people are afraid even when they first come in to say the word suicide. They are afraid to even broach that with someone. The idea is you don't want to put the idea in their head. You don't want to make it more real by saying it. But realistically, if someone's been thinking about ending their life, you're not going to, you know, cement the idea just by saying it in a passing conversation. Some other considerations, though, for the training is we teach people to do active listening. Most people feel like when someone says, you know, I'm having suicidal thoughts, or really any crisis, it's your job to fix the problem. You have to come up with a solution. You have to turn their life around in that call, and that's not...
You become responsible.
Exactly, and that's not the case at all. What we do primarily is we just sort of listen to what's going on. We let the person talk, validate them, and sort of the best case scenario is the person on the phone will actually fix their own problem, so to speak. They'll come up with their own solutions, and we're just kind of facilitating it.
Or a plan of action of what to do next, anyways. Even if that means we're going to take you to the hospital.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's true.
Sometimes it gets to that part. Okay, so they're very well trained then before they're set loose on the phone. So all these situations are dealt with, and you have a foundation to work from. Is there a requirement to become a volunteer or a crisis counselor?
No, not at all. And a lot of people think that you can't be a crisis counselor if you don't have some kind of counseling experience already, and that's not the case at all. Any age is over 18, of course.
18.
Yeah, but any age can come in and do it. Any level of experience with people, like I said, or like you were saying, the training is very comprehensive. We're going to take you through everything you need to know. So yeah, there's no real specific set of experience or requirements to become a volunteer. Basically, the only thing you have to do is you'd apply. We'll then review the application, and if we accept you, we'll do a phone interview after that to kind of get you in.
Okay.
But that's really the only requirements.
Well, so, and that's interesting that you say that in terms of their background. I've been there a long time, and we've had people that work in factories or in the manufacturing areas to actually a psychiatrist at one time and needed to take the training because that's not the kind of training they received in school, because crisis counseling is totally different.
Oh yeah, definitely very different than what I think standard counselors do. I've actually spoken to counselors before who told me that they were uncomfortable with the idea of having to call a client and make a plan. And it's interesting that basically you'd think these people would have this training, but they don't. And but yeah, that's what the training's for.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So if there are people interested, and I think that a lot of times what you do is when you leave, you feel like you've accomplished something. You've given something to somebody else, and that makes you feel really good.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's one of the best feelings when you get off a really long call and they're telling you, thank you so much for helping me turn everything around. I feel so much better. They make a plan. It's a really great feeling.
Yeah. You feel like you can go home and go to sleep now.
Yep.
Yeah. I just would like to have a bell that we can ring, when we've done something really good, because we don't talk about those things, because you're too busy caking the next call and, and those type of things. And so it's nice that when you get off the phone and do a little ring a bell that another life was saved or another person is feeling better about themselves. And that's really rewarding in and of itself, that we know that you've done it, the other staff have done it, the volunteer counselors have done it, and we're a collective team that's working to help the people have a better life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when a volunteer comes in, what is your requirement? How long do they need to stay? What does their commitment look like?
So when they come in, at that moment, we have 3-hour shifts, and we ask that they come in once a week for that 3-hour shift. A lot of people have asked me, can they break the shift up? But we can't do that. Basically, you might have a call that is over an hour, and if you come in for 3 days for 1 hour, then you got one call and then you're leaving. So we don't want that. Overall, though, we do ask that when people apply that they try to stay at least 6 months, hopefully a year and beyond, though. The training itself typically spans between 2 months, and so if you're there for 4, that's not really going to be a big help to the center. We really ask that people try to stay up to a year, but at the very, very minimum, 6 months.
Okay. And if they can't come in on a shift, they just need to let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens all the time. You know, life happens. You know,
That's
people
right.
have classes, people have you know, kids to pick up, so that's certainly fine. They just need to communicate that, and we'll figure out how their hours after that.
And the volunteer hours can be 24/7, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The center runs 24/7, so you know, any time where someone feels like they want to come in, they can. When they're first starting out, I usually ask that they come in during when I'm there, so I can, you know, kind of swoop in, yeah, monitor them, save them if they need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, any of the hours that we're running, volunteers are available to come in and do.
Okay. And is there a specific age group that you're looking for?
Yeah, like I was saying before, not at all. You don't have to be, you know, a college student. You don't have to be, I don't know, in your 40s. Just any age group at all can come in and do it. Like I was saying before, any experience level. All that matters is that you want to basically help people, and that, you know, you're ready to learn how to be on the phone. Maybe you don't feel comfortable on the phone. I don't think anyone feels comfortable on the phones when they first come in for the first class, but if you're willing to, you know, get that training to get up to that point, then we'll take you.
All right. And we have all age groups down there at the center. It's not just a youth group.
Oh yeah, definitely not, definitely not.
We do have a lot of youth, but we have a lot of age groups in there that's involved in the 3-hour shifts, and they can take as many of those. I mean, you know, some people donate 6 hours a week. It just depends on how much you enjoy it, how much time you have. You know, it could be on a Saturday or a Sunday even. And so it's a process that makes our lives a lot easier at the center. We have to have volunteer crisis counselors to make it work, because this past month, 8,000 calls we're averaging now a month to the center, which it takes quite a bit of help to get.
Yes, definitely takes a lot of help for that.
A lot of help, and we thank the local community for their donations and their support, the state for their support, contracts that we have that makes this happen. Do you have issues, you know, do the volunteers get overwhelmed, do you find, taking these calls? Because, I mean, 8,000 calls.
Oh yeah.
Between 7,500 and 8,000 a month we're taking. Are they getting overwhelmed?
I don't think so. I wouldn't say so. That is a fear that either the sheer number of the calls or just the content of the calls, they're going to overwhelm someone, that they're going to basically be able to not handle it, I've heard. But that doesn't really happen. You know, like we've been talking about, there's a very comprehensive training program. We take people through everything that could possibly happen. We graduate you up on the calls. And if there is a call that is kind of emotionally trying for someone, you know, you're sitting in a building full of counselors. So really you just need to turn around, tell someone. We keep a very open atmosphere. You know, you're encouraged to talk about your calls if you need to. But with the call volume itself, I'd say, no, I don't think people get overwhelmed. You know, in addition to the volunteers, of course, we have staff members there who are, you know, handling that as well. So yeah, it really doesn't come into play, people getting overwhelmed, but that is, I think, a pretty common fear that, you know, essentially either emotionally or numbers wise, they're going to get overwhelmed.
Right. And we do debrief counselors after some pretty intense calls that come in. You know, if it's you know, I can remember calls trying to do active intervention, which we call, which is locating a person in the United States. They have a North Carolina telephone, but they're in Timbuktu, and we have to find them because they're overdosing or trying to kill themselves while we are talking to them. And those are very intense calls. Oh yeah. And that's where we do team up as a group. There's 3 or 4 of us that are working it to find them. And thankfully, thus far, we've just about, I think, found everybody that's pulled that little.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And then there is a lot of debriefing after that because it's such an intense type of a situation.
Oh, certainly.
But the one thing I've always heard from staff and volunteers is the support that they get from each other is amazing. Yeah,
and like I was saying, we keep a very open atmosphere. If someone does get like the crisis call where someone's just taking medication or something like that, I actually tell volunteers, first thing you need to do is say, hey, I need help. Nudge somebody, like I said, throw a pen, get somebody's attention, and we'll come in and handle that. And like you also said, we definitely do debriefing if there's a particularly difficult call. So yeah, like I was saying before, I don't think anyone really gets overwhelmed. We kind of catch the different points where it might be too much, and we handle that.
That's great. Then you have in-service trainings throughout the rest of the year, so that once they complete the training, that's not it. I mean, they have training every month and after that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So every month we have an in-service, an enrichment service, where we basically have a community agency come in, and they'll basically either do a presentation, and we've done different styles. I think once we had kind of like a field trip to the homeless shelter where we talked to the director there, and he basically, this was right when they had the new center put up, so we toured the new center and everything. But yeah, the different in-services are important. I think they really cement in people's minds the different resources that we're giving out to people, the different kind of places we're sending them with whatever issues they have. But yeah, those are going to be every month, and volunteers are obviously encouraged, required actually, to attend those.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it better, you know, kind of who you're sending these people to. It's not some fantasy in your head that there is a real building. You know where the building is and that kind of thing. So, well, Adam, they start with an application, and the application is located where? Where's the application?
The application, so the application itself, we have paper copies in the center, but the easiest way to get it is going to be on the website, and that's just realcrisis.org. And it's online. You'll submit it, and then you'll actually get an email or a call from me, and then I'll go ahead. We'll do a quick phone interview. Assuming everything goes fine there, we'll then tell you when the next class is. It's a $50 fee for the class with all the training materials and the assist training and all of that. But yeah, so easiest place to find the application is going to be online on realcrisis.org.
Okay. So they just fill out the application, send it in. They can email through the website also. And we also have internships available for those in the human service back curriculums in either PCC or at ECU. We utilize everybody we can find.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely, thank you for having me on.
All right, and come and join the Crisis Center and become a volunteer. Help your fellow man and feel good about yourself. And thank you for watching the Pitt Resource Connection.